Hey everybody, this is Rocky and Sarah, and we are the Tea and Tequila Book Babes, and we are going to talk to you about the specific issue that a lot of writers face. So, when you read a book that you are absolutely in love with, that you are left breathless just by reading it because of the story or the prose, whatever it is, it just leaves you mystified and in awe. There are one or two things that happen immediately after. One is you are just revved up and ready to go, and you're like, yes, I'm going to write a book just like that, and you just go off and make magic. And then there's the other reaction. You fall into despair and depression and sadness over the fact that how could you ever write something so spectacular? And you start to question yourself. Should I be a writer? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Do I have the skill? Do I have the talent? All of these things just start to ricochet off of the corners of your brain, and you get stuck. And so we're going to talk to you about that reaction today because both Sarah and I have experienced this, and we don't want you to get stuck. We want this to be something that is actually a positive versus a negative.
Yes. And my first tip for this is to use it as inspiration instead of a cause of despair. So if you read this and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. I'll never write something like this. I should give up. Realize that they're a human being just like you. I think one author, I think it was like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, one of them was like, I put my pants one leg at a time like everyone else. There's nothing special about these people. They don't have super secret powers. They're just like you. So if they're able to do it, then you also are quite capable of it. Also look at what they're doing and see how you can use in your writing. So if their prose is particularly beautiful, do a writing exercise where you copy out their prose, like a couple sentences, then try to write in that style. Don't like rip them off, but like see what tools you can develop that way, like constantly writing it. You can adopt some of that rhythm and that pattern in your writing. Or if they do characters really well, analyze what makes you like this character. Do they have a cool quirk that you relate to? Are they particularly an empathetic person? Then write empathetic characters. So see what you can kind of steal or adapt for your writing, and this is like a good hint of what kind of book you want to be doing.
Absolutely. So I am a big believer in experimentation. And so when you're looking at these books, just like Sarah said, take out, like dissect, what is it that makes it so phenomenal to you? You know, is it the references? Is it the prose? Is it the character? Is it the story? What's there that you can play with yourself and really adapt to your writing? Another thing about really spectacular books is one that they exist in all genres. They exist for different people. So for me, the book that rocked me back and made me mystified, for someone else could be a one-star review book. And I'm always really taken aback by that something so spectacular to me could be something that's not received well by another person. And I want to bring this up to you because to recognize that you might be someone's glorious 5-star book, and you don't want to not do it because you fear the 1-stars. And what I would tell you to do is to go and find your favorite book on Amazon and look at the 1-star reviews. And it's going to make you pissed off, and it's going to make you angry.
It will. I've read some of my authors like, what are they on? That's crazy.
Exactly. Like, you have something in you that you're protective. You're protective of this book that you love so much. And so I want you to do that. Because one, is it to recognize that this book that you feel like is on this pedestal that is beyond, touch, is something that for other people, they see all of its flaws and they see all what's wrong. And so it's like what Sarah's saying, we're all human. We all have errors and mistakes and are spectacularly ordinary. But what we can do is we can create something that for someone will matter. So we don't want to go into the world trying to please everyone. We want to please the people that need our words and how we put them together and how we can string a story together. And so just be aware of the fact that what you find to be amazingly gorgeous, somebody else will view it differently, and that's okay. And that's good because we all are diverse, we all have different tastes. Reading, writing, all of this is extremely intimate and vulnerable, but it's also extremely subjective. So
True.
even when you're looking at agents, the same query letter could go to 100 different agents and you could get 50 rejection letters that are really, really horrible. And then you get, that one that is just, they're mystified by what you've written. I know with Stephanie Meyer, writer of the Twilight series, she had gotten lots of rejection letters, and one of many, but there was a few, but one in particular, that it was a really, really ridiculously mean rejection letter, basically saying she should give up, that this book wasn't even going to make it anywhere, all this, right? And then I forget if it was immediately after or before is when she got her $700,000 book deal for the Twilight series.
700,000? That's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty good book deal.
Yeah. Stephanie Meyer and that book deal was one of the things that really spurred off all of these six-figure book deals we see in YA fiction. It was just a startling, shocking thing. And so she kept that rejection letter because it was the reminder of, one, her greatness in the face of somebody else's opinion. So what you think that you're writing, if you feel like, oh man, this is shit, this sucks, this is never going to make it, and recognize we all have an editing process to go through.
Yes, we all unfortunately have to do it, but
Yes.
but it's necessary. It's not fun for the author, but it needs to be done.
Exactly. So get the first draft out. It might be messy, chaotic, ridiculously, put together, but you go through the editing process after that. And you can't go through the editing process without doing your first draft. And if you don't do your first draft because you're comparing yourself to your favorite book, then you are basically saying that all of these authors that put out books, despite the fact that they had their own favorite book, like, just think about all of the authors that would never be if they fell victim to that. And so when you're thinking about this, I want you to recognize that because every author, I think, experiences this at least once in their life, where they read something and they're like, oh, I'll never be that good. I'll never be good enough. If we all did that and it stopped us and we stayed stuck, then the world would be deprived of so many books that are life-changing, that are people's glorious 5-star review books that really settle into being classics or settle into being ones that are recognized for their literary brilliance. I mean, it goes the whole spectrum, but just don't get stuck because you're stuck in comparison. Yes. You have to shove past that, because you are your style, your words, your story is unique. And if you deprive the world of that, then that kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's also 2 points there that I want to highlight. So first of all, remember your why. Like, I recently talked about this on blog post, is you have to remember, are you writing a book to help prevent suicide? Are you writing a book so that a high schooler feels less alone? Whatever the reason, remember this, and it helps you get past your own ego and your comparison. Like, even if it's not perfect, it'll be better than nothing and will help someone. Also, a point that all writers go through this comparison or are tough on themselves. J.R.R. Tolkien nearly threw Lord of the Rings into the fire, but C.S. Lewis was like, no, bro, Don't do it. So it didn't get thrown in the fire. Virgil wanted to throw his works in the fire. I don't know what's up with fires. It's a very specific way to destroy your book. It's never like shredding it, but it's always the damn fire. But the point is that so many writers who are classics, like Virgil, the Aeneid, people, it's kind of a big deal. So is Lord of the Rings, great movies. Like, think about, like, Peter Jackson wouldn't have a career if J.R.R. Tolkien threw that in the fire. So just know, even really great authors, and I've read interviews where they said, I read this one author and I didn't feel like I could live up. And they are really amazing authors in their own right. So keep that in mind when you're reading books that intimidate you.
Absolutely. I think that it would be a great conversation to have. So what are books that intimidate you? Or that make you question, your writer life. And then also, like Sarah said, lean back on your why. We all have a why in writing. And if you don't feel like you really have one, think about it. Really lean into it. Because people say writers are insane. It's like, who would lock themselves in a room to write on a computer by themselves for hours on end? There's no Facebook staring back at you. You're just writing to yourself. It's because in the end, we don't want to just be writing to ourselves. We want to be writing for someone. And so who are you writing for? And why does that matter? And so look at your why. Look at the reason you're doing this, but also look at like your own passion. You got into this, you became a writer or something deep within you was like clawing its way to the surface, and you're finally letting it out, and then you're going to like shove it back in. No.
Don't
let
do that,
the
people.
beast be unleashed. Want to witness it. So discuss in the comments books that really have impacted you. And one, it'll give us all a great reading list. But two, it's something that once you get it out and you can decide and dissect and say, well, these are the things that really impacted me in this book, then you can also just take that, experiment with it, and then make your own writing better.
Yes. And with that, we will see you next week on the Tea and Tequila Show. And again, please comment below and let us know what you think.